Next up, we have Cece Doucette. Is your tech, in fact, making you sick? So here comes Cece. Hello, Cece. You are on mute though, so thank you. All
There we
right.
go. Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here and especially to follow Dr. Stein because I actually had to heal myself from leaky gut syndrome a number of years ago, actually, like the same time I figured out wireless radiation effects. And it was a functional medicine doctor and the team of nutritionists who really got me back on my path to health. And you're absolutely right. It is not a quick fix. I thought if I could feel better 6 months from now, I can do anything. And so I did the 6 months, but it really took me about 2 years to get back into my old body and to get my energy all back and get my food back on point and develop mindfulness practices. So I just applaud everything that she said because I'm a living proof that with some stick-to-itiveness, you can really heal yourself. So thank you.
Wow.
That was
Yeah.
exciting.
Thank you for that powerful testimony for sure. So Cecilia or Cece Doucette is the director of Massachusetts for Safe Technology, working with various groups to address wireless radiation and public health concerns. She serves as the Education Services Director for the international nonprofit Safer Tech Education, offering affordable online training. Cece co-chaired the technology panel for the NIH Health in Buildings Roundtable Conference. She presented state and local policy at the EMF Medical Conference. Cece has been featured on Genius of Wellness, Boston 25 News, PBS, O'Dwyer's, EMF Warriors, and in the films Generation Zapped, Wi-Fi Refugees, and 5G Friend or Foe. So welcome, Cece.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm very excited to be participating in this summit because as we all come to learn about the critical importance of the food, we've always said if you want to have good health, you need to eat right, diet, exercise. But now there's this additional layer of making sure you have safe technology.
Yeah.
And it's one that most folks have not had a chance to tune in yet to because when you turn on your TV or your radio or your social media, we get all this messaging from industry promoting 5G, all Wi-Fi all the time without giving us the background information on the biological effects. So I'm excited to share some information with y'all today.
Definitely. I'm excited because it's certainly not something that I think about that often. We really went from, I'm an elder millennial, and we really went from just like computers in the computer lab to cell phones to like now they are little computers to everybody has computers, everybody has internet, everybody's on this 5G wireless whatever. So how did you come to learn about wireless radiation risks?
So when my kids were in school, I've got two daughters now who are 25 and 29, lovely young women. But when they were little, I revived our local education foundation. And this was right at the time where the industry was heavily promoting their 21st century classroom campaign. And we live in a small town in Ashland, Massachusetts, and our budgets had been cut to the bone year after year after year. And we certainly didn't have the funding to get all of this new technology in. So, good to be parents, kind of raised our hands and started doing some fundraising. And we got the wireless infrastructure in the schools. We got laptops and iPads and Chromebooks and smart boards and minis and all of what we thought was this great new technology, right? So I thought I'm being a good doobie and helping my kids and my schools and everybody's kids out. And then one night at book group, my girlfriend, Wendy, who's an electrical engineer, she and all four of her children have chronic Lyme. And so Wendy, being an engineer, kind of hits things systematically. And in her research, she discovered a book called Zapped by Anne Louise Gittleman. And at book group one night, she said, hey, you know what, you guys, I think there's something up with wireless, that it's not healthy. And it was book group, so I just made a mental note of it. But then not long after that, something else crossed my desk inferring the same thing. And this was from the American Academy of Environmental Medicine. These are the doctors who get the conundrum cases that regularly trained doctors don't know how to address. So all of these environmental toxins. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine is now paying attention to wireless. And as far back as 2012, they put out a position statement to school superintendents saying, please do not allow wireless tech into the schools.
Wow.
Should have been
Wow.
front page news, but mainstream media is by and large owned by the same parent companies that own big Wi-Fi, big tech, big telecom, big everybody, right? So we just don't get the information. So when it crossed my path a second time, I thought, wow, if there's anything to this, I would like to know. And so I'm thinking, is there any science? So I'm a technical and professional writer by trade. So I just went poking around to see what I could find for the science. And I was shocked to find that you don't even have to scratch the surface very far to find literally thousands of peer-reviewed, published studies in highly regarded journals. You won't find too much in mainstream journals because a lot of that's been industry captured as well. But man, when you stop to look at the science, there's one 1,600-page document out there called the Bioinitiative Report. And in 2007, scientists around the world started gathering up and saying, look, I think we've got a major problem, bearing down on us here, but we need more science. So from 2007 to 2012, they did more science, not just a couple, 1,800 more studies. And then they came out with this bioinitiative report. And this is the summary for the public. And I'm just going to quickly pop through the table of contents, right? But this is physiologically what the science is telling us. Evidence for damage to sperm and reproduction. This was the set of studies that I read and got on my feet and started, trying to find solutions for this. They have taken male human sperm, exposed it to a laptop with the antennas radiating, and it changed the DNA, which is our roadmap to grow a proper anything. It slowed the motility and it caused far fewer sperm to be viable in just 4 hours of exposure to this man-made energy that is radio frequency microwave radiation. That's what's carrying our signals and data back and forth. It's microwave radiation. So when we're not plugging stuff in with a cable, everything is transmitting using two-way microwave radiation. So when I read those sperm studies, I went, you've got to be kidding me. I had just sent my oldest off to college with her MacBook. Our youngest had just gone into high school. So for Christmas, we gave her a laptop thinking we'd give her a leg up. And we're both my girls using their devices, but right on top of their reproductive systems. So that was the day that I found my voice on this issue. And now Kaiser Permanente has done another excellent study on women's reproduction that shows higher miscarriage rates when you leave yourself exposed to microwaves. So that's how I got started. Now, the next on this report is evidence for harm for children, because children are not just little adults. Their biology is still under construction, their DNA, their central nervous system, their immune system. And the science shows that, for example, Dr. Om Gandhi did some modeling on these head models. And if you put a cell phone up to your head, right here, it is going to penetrate your brain about this far with microwave radiation. On a 10-year-old child, it's going about 3/4 of the way through the brain. And on a 5-year-old child, it's pulsating almost the entire brain with microwave radiation. So children's skulls are thinner. They have a higher water content in their brains. And so they are biologically inch per inch absorbing more radiation than you and I. So we also have fetal and neonatal effects. That fetus is just cell multiplying so fast. And when you have this overpowering of microwaves, overpowering our own biological electromagnetic systems, we find that we have this whole domino effect going on. So we need to protect the kids. Dr. Martha Herbert founded the Autism Lab at Massachusetts General Hospital, and she sees huge connections between what happens to the families in her care as we get to a tipping point with all of these environmental pollutants. And she knows that this microwave radiation is a huge factor in this. But for everything that we've broken, we know how to fix it. There are doctors who are already treating families with autism and saying, definitely clean out the food, go to a clean organic diet, do the heavy metal detox to pull these toxins out of the brains and other organs. But start with a digital detox. Start transitioning to everything in your home hardwired. You can forward your cell phone calls right to a landline. And I know the industry talked us out of our landlines, but for very short money, you can get your landline back. And then just in your settings on your phone, forward the calls to your landline and turn the antennas in your devices off. So I'll just cruise through some of these other things. Electrohypersensitivity is a new term that many of us are hearing for the first time. These are symptoms that many people today are experiencing from this constant pulsation of microwaves. It's invisible, but just like with COVID, we need to really be on top of these invisible exposures. So when we leave ourselves immersed in this toxicity of microwaves, it does a lot of different things because it's overpowering all of our electrical circuitry. So people often get headaches and migraines, nosebleeds, ear bleeds, headaches, nausea, dizziness, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, cognitive impairment. And to Dr. Stein's point about sleep, for years, the industry got away with saying, oh, there's no mechanism of harm, so let's just keep doing what we've always been doing, which helps them to promote their new product lines, right? So what we know now about the sleep is we are light beings. We operate off of the light and dark of the circadian rhythm. And in those wee hours of darkness, our pineal gland is meant to release melatonin, and the melatonin goes in and regulates our sleep, but also helps to do the cleanup from all that cell repair and regeneration that happens during our sleep. The melatonin helps to escort that out of the body. So what the science now tells us is that if we leave this invisible light energy form on, meaning we leave our devices pulsating at night, our routers, our baby monitors, all of our gaming, our wireless security systems, if we do not create a sleep sanctuary with no microwave radiation, the brain thinks the lights are on because it sees it as this invisible light form, and then it doesn't properly release the melatonin from the pineal gland. So we know about this. We know how to fix it, and we know how to create a sleep sanctuary. So that's a lot of what people first recognize, and they'll go, geez, Cece, I didn't want to know this. I didn't want to hear about it. But by golly, I recognize those symptoms. So I did what you said, and I just shut everything off at night. And everything that's on your device is there to enjoy. Your clock, your alarm, your camera, whatever you downloaded, you can still use without leaving those radiating antennas on. So I've talked about the short-term effects, but the long-term effects are infertility. The U.S. National Toxicology Program completed a $30 million study that concluded clear evidence of cancers and DNA damage. And clear evidence is the top category they can assign, which should have triggered public policy, but we have conflicts of interest with our federal agencies. So yeah, we need to really learn about this.
So speaking of policy, then, what
Mhm.
policy changes or what inroads have you been able to make at the local level and at the public policy level to start addressing these dangers?
Okay, so when I started talking to my schools about it, it came out of left field. None of us had ever heard about this till I started reading the science. But it wasn't easy and it took quite some time. But my little school here in Ashland, Massachusetts became the first in the nation to even have best practices for mobile devices. Turn these things off when you're not using them. Don't just leave them sitting around radiating the kids and the teachers. Turn the Wi-Fi on only when needed, and we can put those on timers, the wireless access points, and always place the mobile device on a solid surface. So I want to invite anybody who has an iPhone to take it out right now. And I'm going to help you with something that will take it from tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, because that's what the industry has conditioned us all to think when we say there's something wrong with this technology. to holy moly. So from the settings, go into settings on an iPhone, and this is in all of our devices. So if you have an Android or a Google phone, if you just do a search on your make and model and RF exposure for radio frequency, you'll find what we're going to show you here. So on the iPhone, from settings, go down just a little ways and hit general. And then from general, go all the way down to the bottom and hit legal and regulatory. So settings, general, legal and regulatory. Now we're in the legal fine print, and 4 down from the top, you see RF exposure. When we hit RF exposure, it tells us 2 really important things. One, this device was tested at a distance from the body. So if you're holding it up or you're tucking it in your bra or your suit pocket or your waistband or your back pocket, you're exceeding the government guidelines for public radiation exposure limits. And those were never biologically safety tested. And the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, which is supposed to be protecting us, is not. It's another captured agency. And Harvard put out a really good report on that, which I do 2 free public education webinars every month, and anybody is welcome to join me at Massachusetts for Safe Technology. And I go into things in a little more detail in a 2-hour free public education webinar. Today, we've just got a half an hour, so I'm hitting on the high points. But the FCC has now been sued for ignoring 11,000 pages of evidence of harm entered into the public record. And it's been 3 years this month, and they have done nothing to inform us or to protect us. So when you read a little further down in that legal fine print, you know, hey, they're good guys, right? They say to reduce your exposure, basically, once you know you're holding a radiating device, don't touch it. It says to use a hands-free option. And by that, they're talking about earpods, which put a microwave transmitter on both sides of your brain. And it's also communicating with something that's radiating somewhere around you. So those are such a bad idea. And we're having hearing loss among kids and adults because they get these things cranking so close to their ears. And then we're now seeing infections that are developing and causing hearing loss because the ears can't breathe when you've got those in there. So that's a really bad idea. And then, you know, in that fine print, they say, hey, use the headset that came with your phone. But one of the properties of microwave radiation is that it amplifies around metal. So if you have a regular wire going from your radiating device up into your brain, that radiation is kind of like, woohoo, party on right up to the brain now. So for everything that we have messed up, we know how to fix it. There are other options on the market called hollow tube or air tube headsets. And it's got a nice long cord so you can, you know, put your cell phone or whatever device you're using at a distance from you, because distance is your friend. And then it's got the traditional wire. It's got your acoustic controls here, but then it's got these 2 little ferrite beads that break the radiation. And then you just have hollow tubes or air tubes that go up to where you plug it into your head. So you're at least creating some distance.
So
But
what's Cece, what's the alternative? Newer phones these days do not have headphone ports. So
yeah,
it's
they're
right.
adapters. You can buy
Okay.
a little adapter for a few dollars and then you can
Excellent.
plug things in. So
Okay.
I love that question, Molly, because when we step back from our own devices and we start thinking about the whole house and all the exposures we've gotten there, you know, with 5G and the Internet of Things, the industry is forecasting that everybody is going to have 200 wireless devices in their homes. So
Okay.
we invite you to do the scavenger hunt for where you are today. And it's not rocket science to fix. It's such a mind shift because we've only heard of the benefits. But when I figured this out, I found my box of Ethernet cables that I had shoved down in the basement somewhere. All you have to do is go to the back of your router. There's Ethernet ports on it. Plug in your antennas. And then, like you said, not every device has an Ethernet jack in it now. But for the iPhone, for example, this is the Lightning to Ethernet adapter, right? It's like 30 bucks. And then for everything you do on your phone, on the internet, you can just run it through the wires. And not only is it safer, but you get a screaming fast signal. It's far more reliable. Wireless consumes 10 times more energy than hardwired solutions. And your data is not being buckshot out through the air. So for security and privacy reasons, cabled connections beat wireless hands down on everything but convenience. But we can retrain ourselves. So
Absolutely.
I want to give
Absolutely.
you a demonstration because I had a really hard time getting my head around something that's invisible. So I circled my tail for a while as I came up to speed on this. And then finally I said, look, you're the mom. Get it together and protect your family, right? So one by one, I started replacing every wireless connection, and I looked at YouTube videos and I learned how to turn off the antennas because this one device has multiple antennas in it. We've never been really taught to think about all these different services like cellular and data and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and locator and hotspot and 5G. Each one of those has a separate antenna mounted in this device. So when you do your scavenger hunt, you just go into settings and start turning them all off one by one. Each one that you're not using in that moment, turn it off and you reduce your exposure exponentially, especially that cellular and data. So I'm going to give you a demonstration. After I stopped circling my tail, I fixed everything I could that was under my control in my home. And I'm in this nice green. And right now I'm getting a maximum spike of radiation from the ambient stuff of 3. And the unit of measurement is something called a microwatt per square meter. In the scientific literature, they want us to be at 10 microwatts or less in our indoor environments, especially where we sleep. So the goal is 10. I'm at 3, just to show you that it can be done. As overwhelming and new as this might be, we know how to do this. So I'm going to take my cell phone out of airplane mode, which is where I use it all the time. It's really kind of a glorified clock and camera for me. But I have just taken it out of airplane mode and it's screaming off this radiation detection meter. And I'm not even doing anything. This is just the antennas coming online. And I don't even have a 5G phone. I've got an old iPhone 7. And I'm going to go ahead and, wow, I'm going to go back into airplane mode on my phone. So I stop radiating myself. And then we'll see it drop down as it dissipates through the air, but it kept the peak reading. We want to be at 10 or less. I was at 3. Just by turning on my phone, I went to 1,290,000 microwatts per square meter. And the science wants us to be at 10. That's how toxic our wireless tech is.
Amazing. Like, just to know that that's even happening. We had no idea. So we have
No.
about 5 minutes left. So
Yeah.
in that time, I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through what are the baby steps that viewers can start to take to reduce that exposure to the man-made radiation. Like, what is
Yes.
the meter that you're using? How do we do this
Okay.
scavenger hunt?
So this is something called the Safe and Sound Pro 2 radio frequency detection meter. It's from a company called Safe Living Technologies. And for anybody who wants to go to Massachusetts for safe technology, I am giving a presentation next Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And everybody who registers, when I'm done, I send the recording and I send my slides, which will allow you to drill right into all this information. So I helped my local library become the first in the nation to put one of these on loan. And now people all over the country are asking their libraries to put one on loan because our libraries are reinventing themselves because people don't necessarily read books. So they want people to keep coming in for the community connection. So now we have libraries of things, and it's not a stretch anymore to ask our libraries to put one of these on loan. And then the whole community has access. This one is about $400. And we encourage one in that price range because the lesser ones, you may not get one that is sensitive enough to pick up everything that's going on around you. So measuring is critical. There's a wonderful film called Generation Zapped. It was part of the United Nations Film Festival. It won Best Documentary at the Women's Independent Film Festival, the DC Independent Film Festival. It's in all the streaming services like Canopy and Hoopla through our libraries. They just censored it on Amazon Prime in the US, but in other countries it's still available. But it's also on some of the other popular platforms. This is a great thing to sit down with your loved ones, with your mature children and their families, because if we try to raise this on our own, my hardest lesson learned, even when we did this, is my school superintendent said, Cece, you're just one voice. So don't go it alone. Get those around you educated first, and then start talking to the authorities. Now, I have had legislation in Massachusetts along with other citizens for the last 10 years. I had the same conversation with a legislator in New Hampshire, and with this citizen, Deb Hodgson, we got a bill passed in 7 months' time. And even during the pandemic, the state of New Hampshire spent a year investigating this issue with world-leading scientists and doctors and policymakers, and came out with this groundbreaking report that documents these conflicts of interest with the industry, and then makes 15 recommendations that wireless is no longer the best choice for primary connectivity. Fiber optics to and through the premises, where we just plug back in indoors and turn off all those antennas, is where we need to be headed. So this is a great document. It's fat, it's 400 pages, but that includes all the appendices, all the meeting minutes. In the first 17 pages, it tells us exactly what we should be doing, and that is transitioning away from wireless.
Amazing. So the resources there, we can start doing some of these things,
Yes.
plugging back in, getting a meter to start looking at where this is showing up in our homes, all of that. So people are asking, and I'm hoping you'd be willing to do this, to
Sure.
repeat and put in the notes or in the chat about your upcoming talk on Thursday.
Absolutely. So
People are very interested in
I'll
that.
drop that in. And
Yep.
I've been doing this for 10 years, and I have always thought that surely somebody up above us is going to fix this. But after 10 years, that's not how it works. We have to move it from the grassroots, which will empower our local municipalities, our state authorities, and then ultimately the federal to change it, because we've got it going on through the courts, we've got it going on through public policy, and we've got it going on through public education. But until enough people hit that critical mass, there's no cavalry coming. So I'm honored to teach and to give the tools that so many others have pulled together. And I will drop that into the chat as soon as I sign off.
Thank you so much, Cece. And your free gift, EMF points of confusion versus fact sheet, will also be in the chat as well. And if you're sticking around, I'm sure people will have questions for you in the chat if you're willing to answer those. And if not, we totally understand too. Yes, we just
No, I'll
appreciate you
stick
so much
around
for
for a
being
few
here.
minutes and I'll
Okay.
throw that in there. So thanks, everybody. I know this is
Thank
a
you.
mind blower, but man, when you just reduce those exposures, miracles happen.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you again so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.